Hello everyone, welcome to Zobrio University's webinar on ZAI Assisting Automated Bank Reconciliation. Today we have Rob Raymond, Executive Vice President here at Zobrio, to lead the webinar. If you have any questions, please leave them in the chat, which is located at the bottom of your screen, and we'll go over all questions at the end. Thank you, and I'll now hand over hosting to Rob.
Thank you, Colleen, and thank you all for joining today. As Colleen mentioned, we're going to talk about Zobrio's assistance in automating your bank reconciliation. Obviously, bank reconciliation is an important task for every municipality, and with an overview of some of the processes that we're going to go through today, note that some of those same capabilities and functions also help you reconcile cash. So whether you're reconciling to the bank or to the general ledger cash, these tools are available. So let's dig in. We're going to start off in the Bank Ledger tab or Bank Ledger view. What's unique about this view as opposed to capabilities within your fund accounting system is with ZAI Banking, we really think of this, at least in one aspect, as a tool when you're wearing your banking hat. You're in a banking mode. You have the ability to view all your banks. You can view them in summary. And instead of tying all your information to a fund account and looking at your bank transactions from a fund accounting principle, here, think of this as it's really the bank that's leading the view, and the transactions are representing inflows, revenue coming in, and outflows. So as an example, we have a view here of this particular bank account that we're going to use through this presentation. And within it, instead of seeing just individual transactions, we're showing that we have the actual deposit. And so if we drill into a particular deposit, then you'll see what transactions make up that deposit. And there's the ability to drill further to see the full audit trail of any individual deposit. So first, let's recognize the ability to view inflows and outflows as they would appear on your bank statement. Now, your bank statement is the key to how we want to match your transactions. In other words, the way information is represented within our ZAI Banking should match up one-to-one with how they're going to appear on your bank statement. So understanding how your bank organizes and groups transactions is very important to how you either manually input data into ZAI Banking or how you allow ZAI Banking to automatically group those transactions. And that's really the example we're going to run through today. So we're going to head right over to receipt entry, and our process is going to be to take some transactions that exist within the system, and these in particular are going to be transactions that came via online payments. And obviously in today's world, the more you can provide the ability for your payers to use online kiosks, non-physical means of making payments, the better. And yet, by doing that, that is by allowing for, let's say, online payments, you do not want to create a problem for those that are reconciling the bank account. So we're going to walk through how online payments that are processed through to ZAI Banking can actually quicken the ability to reconcile, as opposed to the process of accepting cash checks, handing those cash checks from one department to another, and in some ways and in many ways, physically needing to bring them to the bank. So in this example here, as I look in my panel, I've got 4 sets of groups of transactions that have come in. And I just wanted to cite 2 examples here. One, these transactions came through from an API, and these transactions came through file integration. So both of those means of integrating exist within ZAI Banking, whether you're grabbing a file from an online payment portal, or you've created an API connection with the system. What is unique about the API system is that when those transactions come in, and let's say there's 100 transactions, each of those transactions will have on it how they're grouped, how they're going to be grouped as a deposit. Because remember, within ZAI Banking, each transaction holds the transaction date, when did somebody pay, as well as the deposit date, when did it get deposited. So it's that deposit date that we're going to use to reconcile the bank account. And with an open API with these transactions, that deposit information is built into the API. We're going to walk through the file integration and show you how we, the system, is able to take these transactions and group them to the deposit so that we can automate reconciliation. So if I process these 2 batches of payments, which equal 130 different unique transactions, we know how they paid, so much from ACH, so much from Amex, Discover, Visa, MasterCard, and obviously within ZAI Banking, we can handle any number of different payment types, including Zelle and Venmo and Stripe, and so forth. So I'm just going to process those. And if I move over to our cash book, where I would be accepting those payments that we just created, and what we did was we created a schedule of payment, or turnover 41. We have our $21,617 total dollars worth of payments that came through the payment portal. There's our 130 transactions and the breakout we saw. The trick here is that ZAI Banking has the ability to apply the business rules of that payment portal provider. And in doing so, because we know when somebody paid and how somebody paid, we know how those transactions are going to be grouped into a deposit. So in this example of 130 different transactions, we know that they are going to be grouped into 8 separate deposits. And if we look at this deposit, 7,640, and drill into it, while we're in preview mode, before we accept it, we can see all the various transactions that make up that 7,640. So if we accept that into the system, 1, they will come into our cash book, and 2, they'll be viewable by our bank ledger. So here we can see that the system generated, and these are system generated sequential numbers, to keep track of your information and to provide a full audit trail, these numbers represent the deposits that were made. These are future deposits. So you might be accepting money that came in on a Monday, and you may be accepting them Tuesday morning, and we may be creating through this process deposits that could be Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. So let's go look at what we just created in the bank ledger. So we're bringing up the bank account that they fell into. I'm going to use my grid to sort by date. And here is one of those deposits, that's $7,640, that I can drill into. Now, this is a group of transactions that were paid online, were accepted in my example by a remote department, processed and handed over to be reviewed by, again, in my example, I'm going to say the treasurer's office. The treasurer is going to review it and say, yes, I have those 130 transactions. That is correct. I'm going to accept them. And the unique piece of ZAI Banking is the fact that we then group those 130 transactions into the 8 deposits, of which one of them, deposit 926, is represented here. And if we drill into any one of those transactions, now we see that audit trail that I spoke about. We know that it was paid on the 27th. It was deposited on the 29th, or would be in this example. And what the amount is, there, the audit trail has receipt information, receipt numbers, the schedule of payment or turnover number, the deposit number, 926, and all the detail of that transaction, including the GLA that it's going to hit. And in the case of a file, the ability to go and view that file. So now we're pretending we're zipping along in the period of time. And in my example, it's going to be the end of the month. But literally, with this functionality and automation, we have clients that will reconcile weekly. We're yet to have someone to reconcile daily, but you could. So here, as we go into our bank reconciliation tab and bring up that same bank account, and again, if we were manually reconciling, that being we were looking at a physical piece of paper and clearing each individual transaction, as you can see, it's mounting here. Certainly that's possible. And by using the way Zobrio Actionable Intelligence, our banking system, use those business rules to group the deposits, it's certainly a lot easier to manually do it. But better than that, you can seek assistance through our assist button. And here is where you can download an what's called an OFX file from the bank. And that file is an actual digital representation of the bank account. So what we just did there was we downloaded a digital representation of the bank statement, and we allowed the system to compare that to your database, to ZAI Banking. In it, we found that the system, ZAI Banking, was able to match with 287 items, transactions, on the bank statement. Now, if we were missing transactions, that is, if there was interest on the bank statement that it could not find within ZAI Banking, well, it would tell us we could not find the interest that was posted on this date, and we would literally provide information from the bank to give you a sense of what's missing. And that's true for withdrawals, deposits, checks, transfers, adjustments, and as stated, interest. In this example, we've matched 100%. So reconciliation is merely the push of a button. Now, all these check marks, all those matched 287 transactions are checked. We actually will indicate why we found a match, and there are various messages that we provide to help you. One might be an exact match. We found the check number, date, and amount. We know that that's matched. Whereas there might be a situation where we know from the bank there were 10 deposits for $5 each, and we found 10 deposits for $5 each, but one of them may not have been the same date. We think it's correct, but we want you to check it. So there's a back and forth communication between the system and yourself to help ease reconciliation, which in this instance is finally performed by you. We do force, if you will, the user to put in manually the amount that appears on the bank statement. And in this instance, we came exactly to 0. Now, if this did not come directly to 0, and there was a reason, a bank error, and you called the bank, and they said, yes, we'll correct that next month, there is the ability to record any discrepancy here in the system. So you can add in an amount, a description, in my example, bank error, and this will then become an item for you next month to clear should the bank, in fact, correct the issue in that example. So discrepancies, we found from talking to a variety of different treasurers across the country that those discrepancies in the past might end up as a sticky note or handwritten on a bank statement. Here, there's the ability to add that discrepancy into the system so you don't lose track of it. So that concludes the overview of our ZAI Banking Assist. I see that there's a question in the chat room, and so let me answer that. We've got a few minutes left here. The question is, do all banks have this OFX file? Good question. I would say the vast majority. We have run into some smaller banks that have indicated they will be providing that OFX file. Note this, that sometimes that file has a extension of OFX, sometimes it's QIC. It is literally a standardized format that came from QuickBooks, was purchased by Microsoft, and then became an open standard for all to use. So if your bank does not at this time have an OFX capability, it is something that you can impress upon them, and we're finding most banks are moving in that direction. One more quick question: is there the ability to interact with the bank? We're seeing how we can get bank information and bring it into the system. I will say we are working with several banks on the ability to actually pause a transaction back to the bank. For instance, being able to do record a transfer within ZAI Banking and have that posted to the bank. So as technology is changing and fintech is changing, banks too are opening up securely to vendors such as Zobrio to help that interaction and ease the relationship to their customers. So that's it for today's Zobrio University I hope that you have found this worthwhile. And again, we appreciate all of you being here to go through this today. Thank you and have a good day.